Hey friends, welcome back to Mr. Martinez's Mindset Messages. I'm Mr. Martinez. Over the last few episodes, we've been unpacking the ABC's framework for growth and development. So far, we've explored three foundational principles. Attitude determines action, belief determines behavior, and character determines conduct. Today, we're going to conclude this series with the fourth and final foundational principle: discipline determines destination. Discipline is often misunderstood, especially by young people. When students hear that word, they many times think it means something negative, like they're in trouble, a trip to see the principal, detention, suspension, or somebody yelling at them. But discipline isn't about punishment. No, it's about preparation. I define discipline as training that is expected to produce a specific character or pattern of behavior. That's why I often tell my students discipline is not about trouble. No, it's about training. See, without discipline, all the good intentions in the world won't take you anywhere. You can have the right attitude, believe the right way, and even have stellar character. But without discipline, without the training and consistency to stick with the process, you'll just keep stalling out. That's why I call discipline the glue that holds the whole growth process together. Another thing I try to impart to my students is until you learn discipline, it's going to be hard to learn anything else. As we get into today's session, let's take a look back at Marcos's journey. If you recall, at first, Marcos was the class clown. He was always joking, always distracting and disturbing others. But it wasn't just for laughs. Marcos used humor to hide what he was afraid to face: his struggles, his fear of failure, his deep insecurities. He was in full deflection and denial mode. He thought if he made you laugh, maybe you wouldn't notice he was hurting, or his insecurities or fears. What Marcos hadn't yet learned was this: until a person learns discipline, it's going to be hard to learn anything else. Because discipline doesn't just change what we do, it changes what we're willing and able to receive. So here's a key takeaway: training doesn't happen to you, it happens with you. Discipline requires participation. It begins when you become aware of a need and then make a conscious choice to grow in that area. This is why discovering his misguided thinking and belief system was crucial to his process. Before Marcos could embrace and commit to the discipline required for growth, he had to become aware of his own need and develop a desire to change. Remember, you'll only change what you can no longer tolerate. As long as he stayed in denial, he wouldn't grow. But when he started to open up, when he stopped running and started leaning into the struggle, that's when things began to shift. Fueled by adjusted attitudes and realigned truths, discipline provided the commitment and consistency to stick with the hard things long enough for Marcos to grow from them, through them, and in spite of them. Once Marcos started saying yes to the process, the trajectory of his life began to change. I can remember one time during the course of our early conversations, Marcos admitted to me, "Mr. Martinez, I really want to do something with my life, but I don't think I'm smart enough. And even if I was, I wouldn't even know where to start or what to do." Breakthrough. This moment of vulnerability was a crack in his armor of deflection and the beginning of transformation. And once he opened the door, he became open to the processes of discovery, dreaming, and developing. Metaphorically, this allowed him to build a vehicle that could carry him forward into his future. But having a vehicle isn't enough. I mean, you can have the wheels, you can have the hopped up engine, you can even know your destination and have it all mapped out. You can be packed with everything you need along the way and what you need when you get there. But without fuel, you're not going anywhere. Discipline is the fuel. Discipline is what makes reaching your destination possible. It moves the dream forward. It keeps you going when the road gets rough, when you feel stuck in traffic, or when you want to turn around and go back. As author John Maxwell puts it, small disciplines repeated with consistency every day lead to great achievements gained slowly over time. And that's exactly what happened. Discipline showed up in the daily choices Marcos began making. He started showing up to classes on time. He asked for help instead of pretending he didn't care. And speaking of that, he started caring more about his work and his grades. And he got better at avoiding distractions and not being one. And every time he made a choice in that direction, even the small ones, he was embracing the challenge to train. He was saying yes to discipline. And discipline didn't produce perfection. No, but it did produce progress. It didn't happen overnight, but it did happen. Angela Duckworth, who wrote Grit, says it this way: enthusiasm is common, endurance is rare, and discipline builds endurance. Or, as Jim Rohn said, discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. So, pulling it all together, when we look back at the journey, and not just Marcos's journey, but hopefully one that we've learned from and gained some nuggets of wisdom and knowledge as we've walked through it together. It started with attitude, the lens through which Marcos began to see the possibility of change. Marcos had to discover what was holding him back: the fear, the false beliefs, the defense mechanisms. This awareness gave him a platform to emerge with new ways of thinking about himself, his life in general, and the world. That shift in perspective opened the door and fostered a willingness to take new action. Then came belief, the internal wiring. As Marcos began to challenge what he believed about himself, he began to realign with new truths. His behavior started to change. He wasn't just acting different, he was becoming different. This fostered the courage and the confidence that he needed to dream something new, something more, to see a vision of himself beyond his current situation. As he aligned himself with emerging new truth, he could envision a better future. As new attitudes and beliefs took root, character began to develop. That's when conduct started aligning with who he was becoming, not just who he had been. He was able to begin developing the skills and traits that he needed to make him ready. Through new habits, new support systems, and new ways of thinking, he became equipped to handle the hard things he would face in life. And while these new habits might have seemed small, they were evidence of something bigger and deeper taking shape, a readiness to deploy what he'd been developing. And through it all, it was discipline that connected the dots. Because without discipline, the rest of it remains potential, not progress. Discipline provided the fuel he needed to deploy, to show up, to speak up, and to step up into the world with a new sense of confidence and purpose. And now, he's fully engaged in a meaningful path forward. As the first in his family to graduate high school and college and pursue a skilled trade, through apprenticeship. Marcos learned that discipline didn't just help him graduate, it helped him grow. Because, as we said at the beginning, until you learn discipline, it's hard to learn anything else. And every step forward was Marcos saying yes to that training. And every yes brought him closer to the destination he once thought was out of his reach. So, I'll leave you with this. Consistency doesn't always look impressive in the moment, but over time, it builds a life of purpose and direction. As Craig Groeschel reminds us, successful people do consistently what others do occasionally. So remember, discipline doesn't mean being perfect. It means being persistent. I want to thank you again for joining me here at Mr. Martinez's Mindset Messages. I truly hope that you're gaining something of value and inspirational from this content. I'm not entirely sure what direction I want to go next. I do have a few ideas, but I'm not sure. If there's a particular question you'd like me to answer or a topic you'd like me to cover, feel free to ask in the comments below. And if you'd like to see more content like this, be sure and subscribe. Hit that like button and share this message with someone you'd like to invite into our community. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope to see you in the next episode. And as always, until then, much love, much respect, peace.